Well, hello and welcome to Vanilla Shores, a brand new series, a brand new map, and a brand new adventure here in City Skylines 2 for you. Now, as you might have guessed, this game is going to be played entirely on vanilla City Skylines 2, which means no assets and no mods, so you guys can actually follow me in the process of building this yourself. As you can already see from here, we find ourselves in a stunning archipelago of islands, spanning through many rivers, lakes too, and also very beautiful bays. I'm seriously super excited to get started with this brand new project, and I'm so happy that you guys are here to join me as well. So how about we get started? Now, our first tile that we're going to start off in, this beautiful small island over here, that finds itself at the end of this great long island chain. Now, the whole idea of this series is that we are taking things slow. We're going to take them methodically, step by step, adding as much detail as we think is necessary along the way. So if you want to have a nice relaxed building experience where you see a village become a town, become a city, to become a metropolis, then this is the series for you. Now, I'm going to start off slightly more different and slightly more unique than most people. First things first, and I want to make this very clear from the beginning, guys. I want to try to incorporate as much of the nature around us as possible. And what this means is that these trees here, for example, we're going to try to keep as many as we can. I've identified this as our initial urban development that we're going to start working on. However, I'm not going to start off with roads. I notice that we have ourselves a beautiful long beach along here, and I want to capitalize upon that for our residents. So I'm actually going to get myself not just a pedestrian path, but a divided wide pedestrian cycle path so we can actually promote bicycles and cyclists to actually come along here, and we're just going to try to follow this coastline as much as possible, and I think this will do a pretty nice job for the time being. Now, looking at roads, I think it is always really quite nice to have pedestrianized streets alongside any kind of coast, and so what I'm looking to do is to actually have ourselves a pedestrian road that's once again going to follow this pedestrian cycle path all the way along here. My idea for this is that we're going to have a load of beautiful commercial buildings along here with a lovely sea view. And if we're going to have a lot of commercial, then parking is going to be of critical importance. And so I'm actually going to just draw out a few roads like this. We're just going to bring out parallel to one another with a connecting alleyway behind. When it comes to actually joining our motorway, or I don't know if you'd call this a motorway or highway or whatever it is, our connecting road, I think it's actually going to be quite nice if we have ourselves a little one-way system where people can join in one direction like this, and then in the other direction they can leave. Although I do think it would be quite nice if we had a bit of an off/off ramp as well happening. So why don't we get ourselves a pretty little junction like this coming on, and another one like this. And I've just realized, considering this is a one-way system, it basically makes zero sense that we've done this. So we're actually just going to upgrade this to a standard road. We're going to kind of forget about the one-way system on and off, but I think that is going to work really quite nicely. Now, I don't see why we can't start putting down some commercial already. And I'm going to do this methodically. I'm going to do this in a slightly more calculated way than I might usually, purely because I don't want to overzone. The whole idea of this map is that we're taking things slowly, we're taking it logically, and we're trying to make this as beautiful as possible. So it means we're not going to be completely blanketing every last place with commercial, with residential. A few of these gaps along the way, we are going to be adding some interesting things into, like alleyways, trying to boost the connectivity within this city as much as possible. And I think this will do the job for the time being. It will start looking a lot more beautiful when things start to zone in. Don't you worry, I can guarantee that. If this is going to be our commercial area, I think it only kind of makes sense that this side is our residential. And so once again, I'm going to do my best to try to draw a nice road that comes directly along our coastline here, making sure that we do not impede too much on the nature around us. And I think a very simple ring road will do the job to start off with. I think we're going to use this junction here as an access point into our residential area. So we're just going to draw a road up along here, and then we will just continue and finish off this ring road like this, maybe adding in a pretty little roundabout over here just as a bit of a traffic manager. I think in this center here, it would be really quite nice if we had ourselves a kind of central congregational area for all of our inhabitants. Maybe people can access it from here by road, and then along here we get ourselves a small pavement as well. Considering that we're right by the water, I don't see why we can't go for some North American waterfront housing. And once again, we're going to zone this in making sure not every patch gets filled because I don't want this to be like a crazy dense area. And I think this will do a pretty nice job to start off with. With everything kind of built and ready to spawn in, I don't see why we can't go ahead with playing now and seeing how everything starts building in. Well, we're starting to see things spawn in really nicely, both along our commercial promenade and also our residential area with loads and loads of cranes building. However, all you have to do is zoom out a little bit and you realize we have got ourselves quite a few problems right now. I think the first and most important thing is going to be energy and electricity. Luckily for us, we've got ourselves some very beautiful power lines coming straight from the outside, which means we can actually be importing power if we wanted to right now. However, I do want us to be self-sufficient, so what we're actually going to do, considering we've got space here and there aren't really many trees around, we're going to try to get ourselves a windmill. The wind speed is pretty low right now in this area, but if we build enough, we will actually start to see enough energy being produced, and I think it's kind of like a pretty entrance to our city anyways. So what we're going to do is put a few over here. I think 3 should be fine to start off with. We're going to kind of like bring our power lines underground, and just like that, people are not complaining anymore about energy demand, which is fantastic. The next great issue is water. Now, taking a look at our water sources right now, we have built upon a very prominent water source. However, taking a look over here, we've also got plenty, so we don't have to worry too much. That is, however, if we actually had this tile unlocked, which we do not have because we are still merely a young little foundling. So what we're going to do, considering we don't really have much building in here right now, we're actually just going to get a small multi-column elevated tower, nothing too crazy, nothing too big, and we're going to try to align it as much as possible with where we're going to be pumping as much water as possible to maximize our efficiency, and that has just alleviated all of the demands quite nicely as well. Last thing is sewage. All we can really work around right now is a sewage outlet, which I'm not too happy about because I hate dumping sewage into the pristine oceans around us, especially when our waters are looking so blue and beautiful like they are on this map. However, it has to be done. So I'm going to try to think strategically now. If we take a little look at where wind direction is pointing, it's going in this direction away from our map. Now, what that means is when we do start to develop industry, which is going to be next episode now, we're going to do so on this island. So I don't see why we cannot use this island also to dump our sewage on. If we take a look at the direction of the water, it's actually in the opposite direction to the wind. And it does kind of concern me to think that if we were to put our sewage outlet here, the sewage would kind of just be sprayed all across here to the rest of the islands that we are still yet to discover and build upon, which means I should be putting the sewage along here. However, what a terrible eyesore that would be. So it makes me wonder, where on earth along here should I actually build the sewage outlet? Do I put it here, where we could be potentially polluting the waters over here eventually, or along here? Well, I have decided that I'm going to put it along here. The reality is that by the time the sewage actually starts to seep out, I think the massive sea that we have here will kind of dilute it and spread it across so much that it won't really be an issue. And so I'm going to stick it here alongside our forest, kind of concealed as much as possible. And then we're just going to draw this line out directly onto this road here. And all of our problems have now been alleviated, which is fantastic. Now, a really annoying thing about this, I mean, it's City Skylines 2. What was I going to expect? But we have got so many blooming petrol stations along here that it doesn't really make for a pretty sea view promenade, does it? It really doesn't. However, there is literally nothing I can do to fix that. So the only thing I can do is actually to try to beautify the coast itself. And so let me get on with that and I'll check in with you guys once I'm done. I do kind of feel like I was able to save this commercial area ever so slightly by beautifying things a little bit. I decided to add ourselves a few little cabins along the way here, as well as loads of food kiosks. I also decided to add some really beautiful bushes. Unfortunately, it seems like our cycle path is getting ever so slightly flooded, but we're going to ignore that for the time being. And I just feel like this detailing kind of detracts from all of the petrol stations that we currently have. And so it's doing the job quite nicely. Taking a look over here, our residential area seems to be doing pretty nicely. However, we are experiencing issues, one of which is being the fact that we do not have an ambulance right now. So we're gonna have to build a medical center. Logically thinking about it, if this is our residential area, surely like a medical center should be pretty nearby and fairly local. And so I think a logical place to have it would actually be within this residential area. We don't really need a big medical clinic for the time being. A small one will do the job. But if we kind of have it just on this corner here, we're right next to our kind of little village. I was going to call it a square, but our village circle that we're still yet to detail. I think that would be a pretty nice little location to have the medical clinic in. And you can see this ambulance leaving right now, and it seems to be heading to this family home, which is exactly where it needs to be going. So that is really good. Taking a look at demand right now, we have actually got some really high medium density demand. Taking a look over here, I think there is only one very logical place to start putting that, and that is along these parking spaces here. We've got ourselves our kind of town center, you could say, along this coastline here with all of the shops and commercial buildings needed to form a center. We've got ourselves our little suburbia around here just behind our highway. However, these roads behind the alleyway leading onto our commercial hub, I think would be a really good place to start putting ourselves some medium density row housing. Now we've just temporarily put over this pavement, so we force zoning onto these roads here. I don't really want to go back too many tiles because I think we still want to keep this as a fairly like kind of modestly low-lying village. And so maybe if we start off with some slightly higher densities along here, and then we gradually take it down to 3 and then down to 2, I think that will kind of work pretty nicely actually. And we'll do the very same here. And then the same along all of these places here as well. We're gonna make sure that these areas are still very well connected for the sake of the pedestrians. And so we're just gonna bring ourselves a little pedestrian path along here, and that is perfect. I would start to get us a few pedestrian paths going across here. However, I did just realize this is a highway. Strictly speaking, you're going like 65 miles an hour along here. So maybe if we keep pedestrians away from here, that will kind of be probably for the best. Whilst all of this is spawning in, I think it's very important that we continue to detail. So if we go back to our little center here, I think there's something that I could do. I don't know what you guys think of this, but I'm kind of liking the look of it. We've got ourselves like a beautiful centerpiece, loads and loads of greenery around, and I decided to get sort of these bushes in boxes, kind of lining this road as well. It doesn't serve any practical purpose, but I kind of just think for the sake of like our whole little development here, it's kind of like a little pretty centerpiece, I guess. Maybe it's where the town comes and collects to every weekend to kind of work on their gardening. I don't know, maybe something cool like that. Our medium density has started to spawn in really quite nicely actually, and I think it works so well along these roads with car parking spaces because it takes like cars away from our commercial center, which is really kind of nice. It promotes pedestrian access actually along our commercial area, and it kind of bulks everything out quite nicely. And I think the tiered system that I did has worked quite well as well because it kind of starts off a bit taller, then goes shorter before you then get to our kind of suburban sprawl around here. And I think this little village that we've started to develop today has actually gone really well so far. As you can see, the only demand we have right now is for industrial, and that is something that we are going to focus on next episode. We're going to be expanding along this island chain, going over to our next island over here to start working on an industrial area. So make sure you stay tuned for that. As things are right now though, I think we are looking to be very successful and to have a very successful start to this journey. And to be honest with you, considering this is our first episode along this adventure, I think we are doing pretty well so far. If you want to see Vanilla Shores grow even more, then make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss out on a new video. And also hit a like if you did enjoy this video because it makes a world of difference to my channel and I'll be forever thankful. Make sure you check out next week's episode to take a look at us starting to work on the industrial area on the next island along our chain. But until next time guys, I wish you all very happy building and I will see you all very soon.